On the night of December 18th, 1943, the North Atlantic churned restlessly. Through the mist and darkness, a single ship glided silently, its hull cutting through the icy waves. To any observer, the vessel appeared to be the British Landsman, proudly flying the Union Jack. But appearances can be deceiving. The ship's manifest claimed a routine transport mission, but the nervous energy of the crew told a different story. And this ship harbored a secret that could change the course of the war. Relief swept through the strange ship, but it was short-lived. Soon, a British destroyer loomed dangerously close. Yet, instead of opening fire on the suspicious vessel, the destroyer hailed them with an urgent warning. A U-boat lurked in the depths nearby. As the destroyer lobbed depth charges exploding into the water, chaos erupted. Now was the so-called Landsman's chance. From the very beginning of World War II, the UK imposed a naval blockade on Germany, cutting off the Third Reich's ability to import vital materials like rubber, tungsten, tin, and oil, essential elements for producing weapons, vehicles, and other military supplies. In the early years of the war, Germany could bypass the blockade using the not-so-transited Trans-Siberian Railway, bringing materials all the way from Japan and other Far East nations. However, this vital route was cut off in 1941 after Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union in Operation Barbarossa. Suddenly, the German industry was starved of critical supplies. The only option left was to turn to a high-stakes operation, blockade runners, specially equipped merchant ships designed to sneak past Allied patrols and bring in materials from the Far East, South America, and other neutral territories. With dozens of German and Italian ships stranded in Japanese ports following the war outbreak, these vessels became the key assets for these dangerous voyages. After the summer of 1941, the models attempted to cross the Atlantic, hoping to reach German-occupied France with their supplies without being detected. Each journey was a gamble. Blockade runners carried tons of rubber, tungsten, and other vital materials, often traveling thousands of miles under radio silence to avoid detection. To further increase their chances of success, these ships were disguised, often with Allied paint jobs, and their decks were reinforced with guns for self-defense. Yet despite the best efforts, only a fraction of these ships made it through the blockade. Between April 1941 and May 1942, 32 ships tried to reach occupied France, and just 14 succeeded. By 1943, the odds were even worse, and they were about to reach an all-time low, thanks to the Allies. As the war continued to drag on, the Allies were well aware of the strategic importance of these blockade runners and had already taken steps to stop them. In late 1943, they launched Operations Barrier and Free Car, which focused on intercepting German ships in the South and Mid-Atlantic. These earlier efforts, involving the Brazilian Air Force, successfully disrupted several German supply routes. However, while these operations had significant successes, the blockade runners continued to pose a major threat to the northern approaches, particularly in and around the Bay of Biscay. Recognizing that the now faltering Germans likely had one final desperate attempt at the season to breach the blockade in the winter months of 1943 to 44, the Ministry of Economic Warfare in London understood that rough seas and limited daylight offered the best conditions for the blockade runners to slip through unnoticed. Allied reconnaissance flights confirmed the increasing number of German warships stationed in French ports along the Bay of Biscay, ready to escort these vital shipments through the final leg of their journey. With this intelligence, the Allies shifted their focus to Operation Stonewall, a decisive campaign to block any remaining German blockade runners from reaching Europe. Thanks to codebreakers who could decrypt key communications using the Shark and Sunfish ciphers, the Allies could now precisely track the movements of these ships. As a result, more naval forces and aircraft were deployed to patrol the bay and key areas along the blockade runners' routes. But tracking them and destroying them would be no easy feat. On December 16th, Admiral Sir Ralph Leatham received a critical report. Merchant ship Osorno, the first of the expected 5 vital blockade runners, had already slipped past both barrier and free car patrols in the narrow waters between Natal and Freetown. With time running against them, the British command sprang into action, and Leatham officially set Operation Stonewall in motion. From the cool waters of Plymouth, the British cruisers Gambia and Glasgow raced to the Azores, patrolling the unforgiving Atlantic waters in turns and refueling from a lone tanker at Horta, a sneakily hidden pit stop. Meanwhile, Osorno kept her course, turning eastwards at the Grand Banks of Newfoundland and ghosting past the heavily trafficked U.S. to Gibraltar convoy route, escaping the gaze of British eyes on the 16th and 17th. The real test came on December 18th. A Sunderland flying boat circled Osorno, posing as the British ship Landsman, but her disguise held, and the plane flew off. That same night, a British destroyer got too close, even hailing them with a warning about a nearby U-boat. As depth charges exploded in the water, Osorno quickly slipped away into the night, unnoticed. That same day, 6 Torpedo torpedo bombers and bow fighters from the Coastal Command assaulted the outbound blockade runner Pietro Orseolo. With flak suppression in full force and the ship hammered by torpedoes, the ship erupted into flames, her hull sinking beneath the waves off L'Orient the next morning. But while the sea claimed and devoured one ship, Osorno and her crew continued their journey, slipping past an American-British convoy route on December 19th, remaining hidden, following just a day behind one convoy, a day ahead of another. By the 20th, Osorno, her men, and her essential material were approaching their most dangerous stretch. On December 21st and 22nd, she turned east for the Bay of Biscay, slipping across convoy routes once again. Even a British escort group and support carrier, HMS Fencer, prowled nearby. While luck favored Osorno, due to her pursuers being just as clueless about her exact position, the Germans, also in the dark and fearing an Allied interception, formed Wolfpack Borkum, a powerful group of U-boats tasked with covering Osorno's escape by attacking a nearby convoy. Unbeknownst to them, Allied intelligence was a step ahead, as the British had decrypted the German signals, and Task Group 2115, including the escort carrier USS Core and destroyers, was deployed to hunt the U-boats, further supported by another group, with USS Card and her destroyers joining the fray. German Condor bombers flew overhead during the day, searching for the elusive Allied ships. By night, a BB-222 flying boat took to the skies, guiding the fearsome wolf pack as they stalked their prey. Despite this chaos, neither side claimed a victory, and Osorno continued her stealthy approach to France. By December 22nd, the skies buzzed with German aircraft, reporting the sighting of Allied carriers near Osorno 3 times. Below, the British cruisers Gambia and Glasgow trailed behind, hunting her, but always just out of reach. The next day, on December 23rd, an F-4F Wildcat from USS Card spotted a ship 500 miles southwest of Ushant, and Osorno's crew braced themselves as the radio challenge echoed across the waves. But this time, unlike the other days, there would be no stroke of luck. Despite her disguise, flying the Red Ensign, when Osorno failed the challenge test, her identity was exposed, turning her into a high-value target. Nonetheless, Operation Stonewall faced a major strategic blunder. With fuel reserves running low, the destroyers of Task Group 2114 were unable to break off from their carrier to chase her down. Meanwhile, USS Card grappled with flight tech issues, grounding her air support. Amidst this confusion, Wolfpack Borkum struck, drawing Allied attention with their coordinated attacks, supported by land-based aircraft. By the evening of Christmas Eve, the Atlantic Ocean erupted into a battlefield, as Allied convoy OS-62 KMS-36, escorted by HMS Stryker, sailed right into the waiting jaws of Wolfpack Borkum. With precise timing, U-415 unleashed a T-5 acoustic torpedo, striking HMS Hurricane with devastating force, sending the destroyer to the depths in a violent eruption of water and debris. Once again, amidst the chaos and wreckage, Osorno pressed forward, slipping through the turmoil, unseen and untouched. As December 25th dawned, now closer than ever to a pier, the Germans deployed the 8th Destroyer Flotilla. Led by Captain Erminger, 6 destroyers and torpedo boats departed from their ports, ready to escort Osorno to her final stretch to safety. Unwilling to let this happen, Sunderland flying boats circled above and relentlessly pursued her. Amidst this attack, Osorno finally struck back, sending one of the Sunderlands crashing into the sea. At noon, now only 450 nautical miles west of the French coast, the lookouts on Osorno spotted their friendly German destroyers. With this, the final act was in motion. An hour later, the vital blockade runner was encircled in the safety of nearly a dozen German warships. Their combined firepower amassed 207 guns and 76 torpedoes, further supported by Ju-88 fighters roaring overhead, offering air cover. But despite this powerful protection, the Allies weren't done. In the afternoon, Halifax GR Mark II bombers pounded the flotilla, and as night fell, the sky lit up as 58 Mosquitoes and Torbeau torpedo bombers from the Coastal Command took to the skies surrounding them. Once again, neither of these two groups managed to cause significant damage to any of the ships. As Osorno slipped into the Gironde estuary, she accidentally collided with the wreck of a recently sunk ship. While this forced her crew to beach in the vicinity, she was battered but alive, and most importantly, her precious cargo of rubber and other materials was untouched. Despite Bomber Command sending 5 Sterling mine layers on the last days of December as a final attempt to stop her, Osorno finally reached France. While Operation Stonewall had no luck catching Osorno, another of the 5 critical blockade runners was about to meet a far grimmer fate. Alsterufer, packed with essential supplies, had slipped through the South Atlantic Narrows unnoticed and crossed the heavily patrolled U.S. Gibraltar convoy route by December 20th. Initially, she managed to evade detection near 2 convoys, and it seemed she too might reach France unscathed. By December 23rd, Alsterufer was dangerously close to an Allied convoy and a task group, which included the carrier USS Block Island and several destroyers. As she neared the Bay of Biscay, the Germans dispatched the 8th Destroyer Flotilla and 4th Torpedo Boat Flotilla to escort her. But Alsterufer wouldn't make it. On December 27th, she was spotted by a Sunderland flying boat, which bravely circled for over 2 hours as the ship fought back with anti-aircraft fire. Despite the intense pressure from the skies, Alsterufer pressed on, managing, pushing forward at 15.5 knots. Later that afternoon, a Liberator dived through the flak, dropping rockets and bombs through the ship, ripping through her upper decks while others struck near the funnel, setting her ablaze. In the midst of the chaos, Alsterufer tried to hit the aircraft right before it escaped. As night fell, more Liberators delivered the final blows. This time, her hull breached, and the beleaguered ship began to sink. By the afternoon of December 28th, her charred remains, along with most of her precious cargo, slipped beneath the waves. 2 days later, 4 lifeboats with 74 survivors were recovered by Canadian corvettes, marking the end of Alsterufer's run and a bitter defeat for struggling Germany. With Osorno having narrowly slipped through the Allied net and Alsterufer resting at the bottom of the Atlantic, the Allies weren't ready to let any more German ships escape, especially when intelligence pointed to a new threat. German destroyers and torpedo boats, still on the move, tasked with escorting the now sunk Alsterufer as part of Unternehmen Bernau, all unaware of her fate. On December 27th, the British cruiser Gambia departed from the Azores under the command of Captain William Powlett, spearheading Force 3. Reinforced by the light cruiser Penelope, the fast minelayer Ariadne, and 2 large Free French destroyers, the Allies closed in on the German destroyer flotilla in the Bay of Biscay. The German task force was soon spotted by Allied reconnaissance aircraft, and the seas turned into the Battle of Biscay Bay. In intense engagements amid the stormy seas, the Germans, struggling against the waves and low visibility, tried to flank the British cruisers Glasgow and Enterprise. However, the British ships, though outgunned, launched a devastating counterattack. By noon, 3 of the German vessels were already at the bottom of the bay, and the remnants of the German flotilla limped back to port, narrowly escaping total destruction. In the end, Osorno was the last ever blockade runner to reach port, delivering her precious cargo of rubber that met Germany's needs until November 1944. The last 3 blockade runners, Weserland, Burgenland, and Rio Grande, were already on the Allies' radar. Between January 3rd and 5th, 1945, United States naval forces intercepted and destroyed them in the South Atlantic. Further decryptions revealed that the Germans had ordered 2 more blockade runners to prepare for departure. However, by January 21st, all blockade running operations to the Far East were cancelled due to the increasing threat of Allied interception. The destruction of the ships during Operation Stonewall simply would not have been possible without the rapid decryption of Enigma messages by the British Admiralty. Each intercepted transmission gave the Allies invaluable insight into German operations, allowing them to strike with precision. With a blend of firepower and the quiet brilliance of intelligence work, through Stonewall, the Allies secured a decisive victory in the battle for control of the Atlantic.